Hello and welcome to today's edition of the Listening Lounge. My name is Nick Day and I'm CEO of JGA Recruitment Group, and we're specialist payroll and HR recruiters. Now, they say the quieter we are, the more we hear, and that listening is the secret to discovering the greatest of stories. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's fantastic guest. Today, I am joined by David James, who's Chief Learning Officer at 360 Learning, formerly Loop, and he has been a people development professional for more than 20 years, most notably as Director of Talent, Learning and OD for the Walt Disney Company, with a remit that spanned across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. What do the words human resources mean to you?
Nick, I hate the words human resources. Well, I love the human part, but the resources part, I don't like. I know that it's been a hot topic or a conversation point for many, many years, and I started my learning and development career in training and development when we were part of the personnel team. And I know that human resources was a rebrand of personnel to take it away from administration into something that was more all-encompassing and business focused, but I can't be the only person who doesn't like to be labelled a resource, whether that's to my face or behind my back or an overall moniker. I think it's I think we're living in much more progressive times. I'm a big fan of people experience. I think that that if we find ways of creating experiences where people can operate at their optimum, getting the right people in, as well as preparing the people to be doing the right things. I think that we're along the right lines, but I'm hoping that that very shortly human resources will have its day, because I'm not sure it with the term itself, it brings out the best in us.
If it's had its day, what would you replace human resources with? What would be the new term? People is the one we hear most of all. Chief people officers now replacing chief human resources officers. What would be your chosen term for replacing human resources?
Yeah, I think people experience. I think that whilst the recruitment side is one element, it is, is what is it, 1/5 of the human resources experience, and I think that the other four are focused internally. People are interested in about their experience as employees, as workers, as team members. And I think that that recognition that we're people and that our experience is important. I think as a label and as a brand, it's more appealing than the term human resources, which I still think as an association has its roots in administration. But with a career of nearly 25 years now in HR, I know that it is and can be a whole lot more. So I'm part of the people experience brigade until convinced otherwise.
25 years, you've been immersed in the world of learning and development. You've been a pioneer in trying to push the narrative, bring it up to date. We've now got generative AI, which we talked about briefly in introduction as well, which is kind of changing everything again. And there are a lot of people resistant to change in all sectors, to be fair. It's not limited to HR and L&D. But tell us a little bit about some of your work, how you've seen the market change over the last 25 years. You've worked at senior level roles, you're now at C-suite level. That's kept you motivated and kept you focused and kept you passionate about driving the L&D industry forward?
I suppose I'm passionate now because I think that there is a huge opportunity for us. I think learning and development is one of the most popular parts of any organization, but it's one that's also riddled with anxiety because we don't know whether what we do works or whether it delivers us an intended impact. It's very easy to make a case for learning and development in that some of the unintended consequences of bringing people together is just good, isn't it? Sure. This is over $400 billion annual market, industry, learning and development, and for us to not know whether what we're doing is making a planned impact is frankly not good enough. And I think that for the whole time I've been in learning and development, there's been this I don't know, there's almost like two camps. There is either those who are fully entrenched in face-to-face and those who are huge digital advocates. But I think that we've got ourselves into a tricky position where that is a legitimate conversation because we just don't know what works. Give you an example is that in any organization with more than a few hundred people in or a few thousand people in, you can't avoid the need for digital learning. The opportunity to upskill and reskill people at scale is it's non-negotiable. But there is so much money in digital learning that that's probably the area that we have the least oversight for whether it actually makes an impact. I would go so far as to say that with the hundreds of billions that are spent on digital learning every year globally, I'd say only a tiny fraction of that can actually be attributable to helping people to do what it is that they're in our organizations to do. I mean, when you think about it, Nick, there's usually vast suites of generic off-the-shelf content that is completely remiss of any context whatsoever to do with an organization.
Sure.
And that is our go-to for upskilling our people. When in my experience of in-house, I'd say 90% of all the learning needs emanate from the questions, how do you do the right things around here, marrying the technical aspect of a role to the cultural aspect. And we're not just talking if I mention culture, it's not just about generally how things are done here from a behavioural perspective or environmental, but culture is everything from our team members and our leaders to our structures and hierarchies, to our systems and processes, our stakeholders, clients, and customers. Everything is packaged up in how things need to be done here in order to get the right results. And I'm afraid that we have such low expectations of what digital can do that we think vast suites of generic content can be the answer. But we only think that because we don't do enough analysis. We don't really understand the problems that we seek to address. We don't understand the consequences of those or what it is that we actually expect people to do. So on the surface, 10 million pieces of content looks as if that might be a good starter. I mean, I think that a lot of these are bought on the premise that if we have 50,000 people and there are 10 million bits of content, then there must be something for everyone, right? But the thing is, but without the analysis and without linking the technical aspects to the cultural aspect, then it's largely redundant, and people actually, the employees will vote with their attention and engagement. And whilst we're told a lot of the time that people attention spans are much shorter, I'm actually a lot more, I'd say, philanthropic around this, because I believe that people have grown an intolerance to stuff that doesn't add value, and I think that they have shorter attention spans for the stuff that they anticipate won't be worth it. And I think that learning and development, especially in digital, has fallen into that trap. It's people don't see the value, so they don't engage, and we are left with billions spent every year on stuff that doesn't make much of a difference.
Yeah, you know what? An impassioned response, which I like, and I'm hearing and seeing similar things in the HR industry, right? I think there's been there's a lot of I think trust might be the right word. People don't always trust that the L&D investments they're going to make is going to work for them, and I do think there's been such a plethora of new content hitting the market. AI is part of that as well, because I can create an L&D course in 2 minutes on ChatGPT without the context piece, without the knowledge behind it, and put it out there as a course and start selling it. And I think that's manifesting itself now in a lack of trust in the market as to whether we're going to make that investment, how do we know it's going to work? So what's the answer? What do we need to do to make sure we're able to track whether or not an L&D initiative investment is actually going to work with all that challenge you've just highlighted there, very articulately as well, I may add? What's the answer? What do we do?
Right. So first of all, I'll tell you that top-down L&D is never, ever, 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 ever going to work. It hasn't for the 25 years I've been in, and we've seen this. It just doesn't work because you're trying to turn local needs, you're trying to aggregate them up to common needs, and then bring them down to standardized content for which people have attended programs for decades now and not known why they're there. And it's because of the distortion that is that's been done, that learning and development has thought was absolutely necessary in order to develop people at scale, but it will never ever work. What will work is the analysis of actual problems, some critical points of failure in any organization. And I say that because it's not necessarily about creating the content that people need. It's them recognizing that they have a need. Now, there are periods in an employee's journey when they are absolutely crying out for our help. and we are nowhere to be seen. All of those are during periods of transition as you go into an organization, as you join a new team, as you're expected to operate at a different level, perhaps in a different function. And learning and development are largely not there apart from right on the first day when we're overwhelming people with far too much information than they could possibly hold that could possibly be useful. But when they make a transition to manager or leader, where are we? Where are we to answer the actual questions that they have and to guide and support them to do the actual work they're employed for? I've done plenty of these of employee experience mapping, where you'd ask people what it is that they wish they'd known when they first operated at a certain level or came into the organization. And it's stuff like, I'd love to know what the job was. That was something we had for first line managers. Now, for those people who are attending their first line manager course 9 months or a year after they've joined that, it's too late. The opportunity to guide and support them to do more of the right stuff has actually left us. So I'm going to jump back to something you mentioned in your question there, because generative AI has the opportunity to make our lives a lot easier in learning and development by really helping employees themselves. But I'll pick you up on something you said here, because this is the narrative seems to be around generative AI that it's going to allow us to build faster courses. Now, that reminds me of Henry Ford. You ask people what they need, they want faster horses. Do you know what, Nick? The secret is this could eliminate courses, but we don't see that. We think learning and development is about courses, and it's not. When you think, what are those courses for? It's to guide and support people to do more of the right stuff at the time that they actually need it. It's about performance. Now, Microsoft linking generative AI into their Office suite as Copilot is the clue about where this is going to go. It's not about learning. It's about guiding and supporting people to do more of the right stuff when they're faced with unfamiliar situations and challenges for the very first time. And imagine you don't need a course for that. And I think that's the power of AI. It will help to recognize where there's a critical point of failure in our organization, highlight those people who are responsible for that work, and then almost like 10-pin bowling, put the guardrails up so they can't miss. So we'll eliminate a lot of the administration, the stuff that's keeping people from the human work, the creativity, the critical thinking, the problem solving, the relationships, and all of that great stuff. But it'll also ensure that in the culture of our organizations that we're prompted, nudged, and guided to do more of the stuff that's going to get us the results, and not try to fill our heads up, give us facile tests, and then see whether we've passed, so that at some undetermined time in the future, we'll be able to employ that stuff. No, it's it's not there to make learning and development, course creation and delivery life easier. This is the absolute switch around. This is aimed at and for employees to help them to do what they are trying to do, but better. And I think that learning and development need to wake up and catch up to that news, because if we think it's about faster courses, this is the Henry Ford moment all over again.
I'm loving the passion. I think in relation to the faster courses, I'm not saying that's by no stretch of measure was I saying that's the answer. I'm saying it's a risk. I think some of this lack of trust comes in because people are able to try and make an attempt at making a quick buck here. And I think that is damaging the industry from a trust point of view, because the standard of those courses or the content is so poor. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of The Listening Lounge. My name is Nick Day. And remember, every great conversation starts with great listening. Till next time.